No idea what the date is. I know it's a Monday. Maybe like the 20th or something. Oh wait, it's a Tuesday. It's a Tuesday. It's like 11:45. I was thinking about this today. Who remembers that book, The Dawn of Sex, I think it was called? And basically, the book is communistic in a particular way, and I don't mean that. Well, I mean it is communal in a way, but it's communistic in an ideal way that they took a premise, and the whole book is written backwards to prove that premise. So it's not like the guy went out that wrote the book searching for truth and then stumbled upon this as the solution. So there's this dude, and he's watching these bonobo monkeys, and he says, oh, these bonobo monkeys, the women are hypersexual, so when they do conflict resolution within the some of the tribes, I think they're called troops or maybe bands, I don't know, with bonobos, but anyways, the women will antagonize the males, and then right before they beat the piss out of them, they turn around and they present for sex. And then if like two males get in an argument, the women intervene and present for sex. So basically, they calm down the males by presenting themselves. And so the guy works backwards and says, humans can be like this too. If women were, not that they're hypersexual, it's not bad. We're not actually designed to be monogamous. We're designed like these, whatever. Even though, if you look at all other primates, there's a hierarchical turn and monogamy. However, now it's been a couple years since that book is out, and people started living that lifestyle, so we can check up if the guy's correct. And so I did today. I went on there, and they're still working backwards, saying that, see, like, women are more empowered now, and it's like, but that's not what's going on. So what's interesting in that book is that the alphas and the betas are getting sex pretty much as a reward for being violent. So the more violent the bonobo monkey is, the more chances he gets at sex, the more chances he gets to reproduce. And so the bonobo females are in this vicious cycle of constantly having aggressive babies that are incentivized to be aggressive to get sex to pass on their DNA, and constantly. So they've gotten themselves in a bit of a pickle. But what's happening today is different than that. Women are not sleeping with the alphas and the betas and the sigmas and all the way down like the bonobos, where they're sleeping with all of them. The women are still sleeping with all the alphas and ignoring all the males without monogamy. And so the only difference is, instead of the tribe being like, or a troop being like, between 5 and 20 primates, like a small town, we would call it, so that some of the women get paired off with the betas at the bottom to mate with. It's now global, and because women have not put any sort of sexual cap on themselves, they can just go around and sleep with the alpha of every group on the planet and leave out these beta males. Now, what I was thinking about today, which is interesting to me, is, and Ann Coulter nailed this first, this is not my original idea. When Sex and the City was written, Sex and the City was not a story of women having sex or is it maybe Sex and the City? Sex and the City. It's not women having sex in the city or in the city. It's actually a story of gay men, but they couldn't sell the story of gay men, so they made it about women. And then women tried to mimic these masculine men. And like Samantha's actually the bear, and then Charlotte's like the twink. And these are different archetypes of gay people. What was interesting to me with the dawn of sex is I was looking at it now, and it's like the gay men community, and I'd be interesting to check back and see what the author's sexual preferences are. But gay men do seem to embrace now the bonobo monkey style, where like they're sleeping with all the men all the time whenever they want, and they're switching back and forth. So not all of them are. Some of them stay in one thing, but men are actually handing it out on all levels to each other to calm one another. Kind of like, yo, bro, you horny? Yeah, sure. Oh, stick it in here. Or let me stick it in there, or whatever to take. But that's not what the women are doing today. The women are being hyper selective now, and there's no checks and balances to put them in place. But I just found it pretty interesting. When the book came out, I thought it was like rubbish, and it was he's working backwards. He's not working forward to truth. He took a tribe, and then it's like, do you remember when you were in government schools? Hopefully you were homeschooled and you don't. And they used to make you do a compare and contrast essay. This guy just picked bonobo monkeys, and then he picked humans, and then he created a compare and contrast essay, and then he just deleted the contrast part. and then him and his publisher wrote some extra chapters, and then they released it, and they're like, genius, absolutely genius. But like I said, there's no doubling back to that. That's what's interesting to me. So, like in the current state of all these things that they try, like for instance, like when now that they're doing hormone treatment, therapy, teaching kids about their gender and stuff. If you go forward and you can look back, they were doing some of this stuff back in the 1970s, and there's quite a few people that have transitioned back and are speaking out against this from the 1970s. They're not going back to the 1970s and 80s, 90s when this was started. Instead of checking in with these people, they just say, well, these people kill themselves, so they transition, check on them in a year, oh, they're not dead. And then you're like, well, check them on in 2 years. And it's like, well, they kill themselves in 2 years, so the data will just stop it in a year. And then if it branches out to 3 years, they just stop it. They like expand it to 3 years and stop checking. So I guess the philosophical thing that I just want people to check in with all this stuff is, if you have an idea, if you have a way of life, if you have an idea or an ideology or something that you follow, and you've implemented it for yourself over some period of time, whether it be a religion, a job, a politics, a family structure, a relationship, a way you talk to people, whatever it may be, go back and do some check-ins. Like if you've been going to therapy and you feel good, like when you leave therapy for like an hour, but then you look back and you're like, wait a minute, I've been going to therapy for 5 years. 5 years ago, where was my life? Now it's 5 years later, where's my life? If you're in about the same spot, or if you're slightly better, you can decide that that's good. But if you add up all the funding you paid for the therapy, and then you see where you're at, make a decision for yourself if that's actually been a good investment, or if you could have been putting that time, energy, and finances and resources into something else that would have been better for you. It's a pretty easy thing to do. It's basically just doubling back. And then once you've done this for yourself, before you go out and start preaching that, branch out and look at the local people you support in your family and the decisions they make, or look at the politicians you support, look at the companies you support, and branch this outward, the policies that you support, and then double back on those policies. And instead of saying, well, I mean, the policy would have worked had these people not allowed, had not changed this, and this. Stop making excuses for yourself, others, and stuff, and just look at what it is. So when you're saying, like, well, true communism has never been tried, it's like, well, then maybe it can't be tried. If it's been tried 100 times and millions of people have died, then maybe it can't. Or if you have an idea of what capitalism is, and you're like, well, that's not true, free market capitalism, X, Y, and Z, then one, maybe you should check a couple things. So if you're looking at communism in a particular way and it never works out, maybe you need to either change your definition of communism and then work on that. Or if you're looking at capitalism and it doesn't work out, maybe you need to change your definition of capitalism. And by change, I mean recheck to see if what you think you're believing in is actually what you're believing in. And then if things continue to not add up within these systems, then you have to check them into reality. So you have the hypothesis, and now you have time. They can check the hypothesis to see if it actually worked or didn't work. And I've noticed that most people, and maybe this is a good evolutionary strategy to keep all these techniques alive, but I've noticed that most people don't do these checks. And if they do these checks, they have a way to double down on their ideas and manipulate whatever they need to manipulate, either by cognitive bias, ignoring, or moving the goalposts, so that they can keep the same ideas and strategies in place, which is fine. If you want to live your life in that manner, that's fine. But if you're actually and honestly looking to improve and get better, then you need to assess your business plans, your life plans, your goals. And not only that, you need to assess the plans and goals of the people that you have around you that are in place that you're supporting and putting your energy and resources, and then branch it out to your local town, to the state you live in, or the province, the country, the continent, all the way out to the global. And if people are putting these strategies into place, and then when you look back to see if anything changes, they haven't, then it might be a good sign that that strategy needs to be changed. And the timeline needs to be a sufficient timeline based on the goal and the structure and what have you. So that's enough of that.